Caitlin Clark has now publicly addressed the controversy surrounding her Indiana Fever teammate Sophie Cunningham, but her answer did not reveal what many people were waiting to hear. After Indiana's 108-100 loss to the Minnesota Lynx on August 2nd, Clark said that leagues and governing bodies should work with athletes to find solutions. She then redirected the conversation toward basketball. What Clark did not do was personally support or reject Cunningham's position on transgender participation in women's sports, and that unanswered part is why a brief post-game exchange has become the newest development in a story that has followed the Fever across several cities. For verified entertainment updates without the rumors, subscribe to Startline Entertainment. The newest confirmed update came inside Target Center in Minneapolis. Clark had just finished a game in which the Fever fell to the league-leading Lynx, and reporters asked how the team was handling the public debate surrounding Cunningham. Clark initially said she believed the team was navigating the situation well. She then offered a broader answer saying, "I think it's for leagues and governing bodies to work with their athletes to find solutions." Her next sentence made her immediate priority clear. The Fever, she said, were focused on basketball and on correcting the problems that had contributed to the loss. When a reporter asked for an additional reaction, Clark did not expand. She answered, "I just answered." That exchange matters because it sets an important factual boundary. Clark publicly acknowledged the controversy and identified where she believes responsibility for a solution belongs, but she did not state her personal opinion about eligibility rules. Any claim that she endorsed Cunningham, condemned her, or attempted to secretly signal one side would go beyond what Clark actually said. Based on the public record, she kept her position institutional and basketball-focused. The controversy began in late July when ESPN published a profile of Cunningham. During that interview, Cunningham rejected the claim that she hated transgender people, but said she wanted to protect girls in locker rooms and athletic competition. She described transgender women using language that critics considered demeaning and expressed support for excluding them from girls' and women's sports. The comments quickly moved beyond a standard player profile and became part of a national political and cultural argument. Cunningham was later asked to clarify her position before an Indiana game against Connecticut. She did not retreat from it. She told reporters that she had said what she intended to say, called the issue common sense, and connected her argument to protecting children in women's sports. She also said she did not consider herself highly political and maintained that her view did not come from hatred toward transgender people. Those distinctions are part of her stated position, but they did not end the criticism because opponents argued that the exclusion she supported would still harm transgender athletes. That same period produced an organizational response from the Indiana Fever. The team said its players are adults with their own perspectives and that those views belong to the individual players. The organization also said it was committed to welcoming fans from every background and treating everyone respectfully. That statement neither endorsed Cunningham's position nor announced discipline against her. Instead, it separated individual player speech from the Fever's official message. That distinction became increasingly important as the controversy began appearing outside arenas. By the August 2nd game in Minneapolis, the Associated Press reported that 3 consecutive Fever games had attracted demonstrations connected to Cunningham's comments. Some participants supported transgender inclusion in sports. Others carried messages thanking Cunningham for speaking about girls' athletics. The rallies showed that the story was no longer confined to one interview or one locker room. It had become an issue following the team from city to city. One of the most consequential developments occurred around Indiana's game in Seattle. 2 teenage fans entered Climate Pledge Arena with signs supporting Cunningham. After a confrontation involving Seattle Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton, the WNBA fined Keaton and suspended her from attending the team's next 5 home games. The Storm apologized and said it was committed to providing a respectful environment for every fan. The key distinction is that the league action concerned Keaton's reported conduct toward the fans, not a ruling on Cunningham's position or the broader transgender athlete debate. Cunningham subsequently praised the teenagers for expressing their beliefs and stated that she believed there should be love and safety for biological girls and boys, transgender women, and transgender men. The Fever said that neither Cunningham nor the organization had advanced knowledge of the Seattle demonstration or contact with its organizers. That detail prevents 2 separate events from being inaccurately merged. Cunningham publicly supported the fans afterward, but the checked reporting did not establish that she or the Fever organized their appearance. Days later in Portland, Cunningham was asked whether the demonstrations had become a distraction. She said they had not, and suggested the issue was not occupying her teammates' attention. That claim came from Cunningham's perspective. Until Clark was questioned in Minneapolis, there had been little public evidence showing how the Fever's most prominent player would address the situation herself. The Minneapolis game created the clearest visual representation of the divide. Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve wore a shirt reading "Trans Kids Belong." Fans inside the arena wore similar messages, while people outside displayed signs supporting both transgender inclusion and Cunningham. Cunningham was also booed when she first touched the ball and during later possessions. Those reactions were visible and audible, but they should not be generalized into a claim that every fan or every WNBA player holds the same position. The public response was divided. Before the game, Reeve and Cunningham spoke at midcourt. Reeve later said the discussion involved their public platforms and a desire to educate. She acknowledged that they had some areas of agreement and other areas where they differed. She did not disclose the complete conversation, and Cunningham did not publicly provide a detailed account afterward. That means descriptions of the meeting as a confrontation, reconciliation, or change of heart would be speculation. What is confirmed is that they spoke directly and that Reeve characterized the interaction as constructive despite their differences. Then came Clark's answer. Its significance was not that she introduced a new policy proposal. She did not. Its significance was that the player with the largest public platform on the Fever finally identified the issue as one for leagues and governing bodies to address with athletes. That framing shifted responsibility away from a debate between individual teammates and toward the institutions that establish competition rules. It also allowed Clark to acknowledge the subject without revealing her own preferred outcome. There is another reason her phrasing matters. Clark was speaking minutes after a loss, and she repeatedly returned to performance. Minnesota had scored 108 points, extended its winning streak, and forced Indiana to confront basketball problems that Clark considered more immediate. Her answer essentially contained two messages. The eligibility debate belongs with sports authorities, and the Fever's players need to concentrate on winning games. Neither message resolves the underlying issue, but both explain what Clark was prepared to discuss publicly that night. The broader context remains unsettled. The Washington Post reported in late July that the WNBA did not have a league-wide ban on transgender women and noted the players' union's past support for transgender youth. At the same time, rules across scholastic, collegiate, professional, and international sports have been changing, and they are not governed by one universal standard. Clark's reference to leagues and governing bodies recognizes that rules come from institutions, but she did not identify a specific rule she wanted the WNBA to adopt. What also remains unclear is whether the WNBA will issue a new statement directly addressing Cunningham's comments, whether Indiana will offer more guidance to its players, or whether Clark will eventually provide a more explicit personal answer. None of the Czech sources reported that Cunningham had been disciplined for expressing her position. The only league suspension connected to the surrounding events was the action involving the Seattle co-owners' conduct toward fans. Those are separate matters and should remain separate in any accurate account. Here's the start line takeaway. What changed on August 2nd is that Caitlin Clark finally answered a direct question about the controversy. What did not change is just as important. She did not endorse Cunningham's language, reject Cunningham's argument, or announce a policy position of her own. Viewers should not treat Clark's decision to remain brief as evidence of a belief she never expressed. The responsible reading is that she placed the issue with leagues and governing bodies and then returned her attention to basketball. For Cunningham, the public record shows that her position remains unchanged. For the Fever, the official message remains that players speak for themselves, while the organization intends to welcome and respect fans from different backgrounds. For Reeve, the Minneapolis game became an opportunity to communicate support for transgender youth while speaking directly with someone who publicly disagreed. And for Clark, the story now centers on whether her first answer will also be her final answer. As of the afternoon of August 3rd, no newer official statement from Clark, Cunningham, the Fever, or the WNBA was identified in the sources reviewed for this report. The next meaningful development would be a direct league policy statement, another official team response, or a more detailed explanation from Clark herself. Until then, the verified conclusion is narrower than many headlines may suggest. Caitlin Clark addressed the controversy, but she left her personal position unanswered.